So I'm sure y'all are probably looking at the pretty sunset, the cows grazing. I'm looking at those chicken houses that are about to be empty. The end of the flock, and it's now time for our catch-out. Catch-out, that's just what we call it when all the birds are caught and taken into the plant to be processed. So I'm gonna take you along and show you a little bit of our process, kind of how things work. To give you an example, it's about 7:30 p.m. and I'm turning feed off for the first house. They'll start catching that house about 6:30 a.m. tomorrow. So there's a whole process through the night to get each house ready. They're just catching 2 of mine early in the morning, and then they'll start catching the other 2 tomorrow afternoon. So they're actually set up on 2 different processing dates. One is set up for a Thursday processing, the others are set up for Friday. They're not always split like that. Sometimes you catch 1 house in a night, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes all 4. So it just depends the way these are falling. I've got 2 houses going in at 35 days and 2 houses going in at 36 days. Like I said, getting feed cut off, that's step number 1, and then we'll go from there. These chickens here are projected to go in at about 4 pounds roughly. This is the first flock that we have cleaned out on in a long time, and we think it's helped our mortality. We've had a little bit of spike in mortality around day like 12 or 13. It was manageable. It started coming back down. To give you an example, we're probably picking up 30 to 40 a day in each house right now, whereas the last several flocks, that number was more like 150 to 200 a day. So definitely a lot better. The worst thing that can happen for a chicken farmer is you have high mortality at the end of the flock, because you have fed that bird for the entire flock, they've eaten a lot of feed, they've drank a lot of water, and then all of a sudden they die, and so you lose that weight, but it really hits you on your feed conversion. But I've got my feed running out of these hoppers. Step 1 in your catch-out process, you turn off your feed. There's feed going to the fill system, to the feed bins outside, get all that feed out, get all your feed lines empty. You don't want any feed left behind. And we give our birds about a 6-hour cleanup time. So that means they'll have 6 hours to eat on the feed in these pans before I have to raise these feed lines all the way up. Got a hopper running dry. I'll let that run for about 30 or 45 seconds, and that just makes sure that all that feed is out of the feed lines and in these feed pans. This type of feed here that I'm running out right now is not the same type of feed that I'll start my next flock on. So it's important to get all that out of the feed lines. Otherwise you end up going through and having to take some of that out, or it just becomes wasted feed down the line. So that's what I'm doing there. We'll let them run for a little bit, then I can go ahead and get those hoppers out. All right, all the hoppers are out. We just store them on the wall up out of the way. So they're in the house, they're protected. You know, we don't put them outside because rain, we don't have control rooms outside of our houses. As you can see, our controller is inside the house. So we just hang them up here until we need them again. It's 7:30, I'll come back in 6 hours. I'll raise all these feed lines up, get them out of the way. We leave the water lines down until 30 minutes before catch out time, which for this house here is 6:30 a.m. and then everything for the next house that they're catching is 2 hours later. So 7:30 feed off here, 9:30 in the next one. And then they start catching at 6:30. They'll probably be catching my other house around 8:30 a.m. 8:30, maybe 9. But meanwhile, I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, tomorrow I have what's first catch. So for a 4:30 p.m. catch out, they've got my feed up time at 12 p.m. So lunchtime tomorrow. So I'll actually start turning feed off at 6 a.m. right before they start catching my first house. So the catch out will run until probably 9 p.m. tomorrow if everything goes well. Hopefully I'll get a few little naps in between. But it's gonna be a long, about 30 hours. Eric's birds are a day younger than mine, and so today is Wednesday, so I have Thursday processing on my first ones and Friday on the second ones. Eric has one house going in for Friday processing, and because of that, they're actually rolling the rest of his into a Sunday night catch for Monday morning processing. Sometimes they do that just depending on what birds they have to catch during the week. Right now our bird age is averaging 35 to 37 days. Eric will have one house going in at 35 days and then 3 houses at 38 days. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you carry birds over the weekend, because that moves you into a whole nother tournament pay week. So you're competing with a whole nother group of farms that are in the week after you. So who knows, but it does allow you to put more pounds on those birds, which if you're a chicken farmer, you know weight pays. I'm gonna have to borrow some money from Eric after this flock. It's getting a little bit darker. I'm gonna close off the feed bin. See what we got left. So up to that top ring up there, you can't really see in the dark, but it's about 7,000 pounds down in here, so I probably end up with a couple thousand pounds left. They'll send a truck out probably tomorrow that has an auger that'll go under the feed bin, and they can actually auger that feed back into a truck. They'll go weigh it, see how much I had left over, credit that back to me, and then they'll take it to another farm. So I cheated a little bit in here and I turned off my feed from the controller. That way when I got down here, it would start running. I've had a few questions about what fence I used in the last video. They've gotten a little bit twisted. These are made by Sephnos, S-E-P-H-N-O-S, and they're designed to go in a straight line, but to me, if you put those in a straight line, they're going to be real flimsy. You're going to need a lot of stands for it. So I do a zigzag shape and then have some stands periodically. I like them. Fold them up pretty easy. They're pretty compact. Chickens can't get through them. It's so warm, I'm gonna go ahead and turn my brooders off too. But I'll get these hoppers pulled out. I'll go ahead and take this fence out. I do have fences in the front and backs of my houses, but I actually pulled them out today when I was picking up chickens, so I don't have to fool with that in the middle of the night. Once I do that, I'm gonna go rest for a little bit, I'll probably get about 2 hours of sleep before I come back down at 1:30. Raise feed lines up, sleep about another hour and a half, raise more feed lines up, sleep about another hour and a half, start some catchers. So I'll bring y'all along, just show y'all some little tidbits, but if y'all have questions along the way about my catch out, leave them down in the comments and I'll be sure to respond. Time to go get a little shut-eye. All right, 1:30 came quick. Time to get out the old drill. Let's go see how well they did cleaning up the feed out of all those pans. So I'm in my number 3 house. This is the first house I turned feed off in. The first house they're catching. There's no rhyme or reason they catch whatever house. So the feed pans look pretty dry. A couple flocks ago, I had all of my feed line and water line cabling redone. So I actually have the straps now. Used to, everything was all cables, and I would dim my lights way down because the cables will sometimes pop when you're winching them up. I still dim my lights down some, but not nearly as much. But if that cable, if it pops, it'll scare these chickens, and those chickens will all go to the wall, and they're more likely to smother, get too hot, something like that. So that's the reason for that. But let me see if I can set y'all up with a view. So there we go, it's about 1:40, doesn't take long to get the feed lines up. Since it's so warm outside, I know I'm not gonna need my brooders through the night. Went ahead and raised them up. To the ceiling as well. So now that I got this house done, I'll have one more house to do in about 2 hours. So right now I'm gonna go back and sleep for a few more minutes, but after I raise that other one up, I'll probably get another 30-45 minutes of sleep in, and then I'll come back to this house right here. They're supposed to catch them at 6:30. I will probably come here around 5:30, go ahead and turn the water off. Usually I give the chickens a few minutes to drink the water out of these water lines. Once I do turn that water off, I have some sensors hanging throughout the house. That's a backup sensor. There's 5 temperature sensors throughout, and just some other little odds and ends, cable and whatever, that I will put up in the pans to get everything out of the way, because I'll have a forklift driving in and out of here. They'll be somewhat going under the feed lines. For the most part, the forklift goes down the middle, but they do get under the brooders, under the water lines, under the feed lines, and so I try to get everything out of the way so that way nothing snags on the forklift. But once the chickens have drank all the water out of my water lines, I'll go through and raise them up, 8 total water lines, and pretty much just wait till the catchers come in. The catchers will handle everything from there. They'll kind of get the birds moved off of one wall, so that way they kind of create a lane for the forklift to come in and out. I'll try to video some of that, but it gets pretty dark in the houses. They always catch them when it's dark, so don't know for sure how much of that y'all be able to see, but we're moving along. One step closer to being bird free. It's about 5:20 and it's about time to start turning water off. So these chickens right here have been completely off of feed since 1:30 a.m. It's now about 5:30, so about 4 hours. And you can see that when they're not eating much, they also cut way back on their drinking. I like to come in here and I turn my water off. I turned it off in the building. Also have a front and a back cut off in each house. So I'll go ahead and turn it off. And I'm still gonna give them a few minutes to drink all the water out. That's especially important in the winter time when it gets so cold. But even this time of year, I don't like to have water sitting in there for 2 to 3 weeks. Even though we do flush the water lines before we get baby chickens, it's still just, I like to get it cleaned out. So as they're finishing up their water lines, I'll start going through their spouts on each water regulator, temperature sensors, and a couple other things throughout the house. So I'm gonna go through and just get all that stuff out of the way, and then I'll be ready to raise my water lines here shortly. It's a little dusty when you walk through, so we got my N95. We'll have little zip ties on these water lines, and that holds these spouts down. Because when you raise them to the ceiling, you don't want these spouts poking into the tripod up there. All the feed lines are up, so you can actually walk underneath these feed lines. Our tractors will even go under them, so they're out of the way. I am just waiting on the catchers to get here now. We're starting to see a little bit of daylight, and it's just in time for 6 o'clock. I gotta go turn some more feed off. 7:12, I ran back to the house to help get the kids ready because the trucks are late. Catchers showed up on time, but the trucks did not, which is unusual because usually they'll drop a trailer way before the catch out even starts, and the trucks are usually on time. So it's frustrating though when you got all your water lines up, got everything done, and here you are 45 minutes after they're supposed to be started. So then it just delays the rest of my day. So I'm running back down to the farm to see if the catchers have moved all the birds over. I just got all my fans ready, and so they can handle the lights. Once they move the birds over and kind of get them where they want them, they turn the lights all the way off, so then the chickens just kind of lay still. And they'll come through, bringing the cages in and out with the forklift, and the catchers are filling them up. Oh, I said that wrong. So they had 2 forklifts. So they were only about 30 minutes late because we had another trailer dropped. So they're getting close to being halfway loaded on that. So they probably started right about 7 or maybe even a little bit before. Usually they'll load about a trailer every 30 minutes. There's usually close to 4 trailers per houses. These are 40 by 500s, 30,000 chickens in each house. But that's kind of the 2 hour, so that's why when we're doing our feed offs, it's 2 hours, because typically within 2 hours they're gonna be done catching a house and getting ready to start another one. Trying to look back through to see what my houses were projected at. All right, so this house here, my 3 and 4 that they're catching today are projected at 411 and 413, 35 days. So that's pretty strong weight. We haven't really had any hitting 4 pounds at 35 days in the last couple flocks. Tomorrow, they'll be 36 days old, which will be actually today. So I got a 421 and a 427. So this house number 1 I'm in is projected to weigh 421 at 36 days. That's a pretty strong number there. For those of you that know the chicken business, so these came from flock 92 off a 26-week-old hen flock, 28,200 of them. So basically these eggs were some of the first eggs that a chicken ever laid, which typically are small. These chickens were small when we dumped them. I did have some high mortality with them. You can see it got up in the 150s, 120, 160, 150 through here. Probably lost close to 4,000 birds in this house, maybe more like 3,600, just doing a quick glance, which is way too high. But those were lost like around week 2 or week 3, which is better than the final week. I'll go back through in a little bit and take those hoppers out. Still have to turn the feed off in house number 2 shortly. But I'm gonna go check on the catchers, make sure that they got started and everything is going well. And I'm going to get breakfast. I don't know how well you can see down there, but there's basically a tarp stretched across in front of the fans. And that just prevents the chickens from migrating towards those fans because there are lights back there, and it keeps them from smothering on the wall. So you can't really see anything in there while they're cooking. But they're moving along. There's probably 5 or 6 guys in there. They have usually 2 cages in there at a time. And they'll go through and they'll grab, I don't know how many chickens at a time, grab their feet, put them in the cage. Forklift driver brings a empty cage in, takes a loaded cage out. Looks like they're moving along well. So the catchers are wrapping up the first house. I don't know if you can see down there in the back, but they've got a few cages to go. So I usually take them a little bit of a break and get started on the next house. We're about to get house 2 going. Well, the second house of the day. So we got one of the catchers in the back of the house by the fans. He's moving those chickens out and putting up that flap that I showed you earlier. After they do that, they'll move the chickens off that far wall towards me, because all the cages open when you're coming in the house. They would open towards my side. So it just makes it easier for the catchers to put the chickens in from this side to that side, and it gives the forklift a path. And the catchers, they'll usually just kind of slowly walk down the side of the house. With it being as hot as it is, you don't want to stress these chickens out or get them too riled up. It'll just make the house get warmer and cause the chickens to get hotter. So slowly moving them over and taking it easy make the whole transition a lot smoother. Been doing some other work around the farm and getting ready for my houses that are selling tonight. It's 12:53 and they're done with the first 2. It took them a little bit longer, but they also got delayed starting out. A couple of the catchers were saying the birds were pretty big. That slows them down sometimes too. It's also pretty hot, so they're in there, even though there's a bunch of fans running. I think it's probably 80 degrees in the back of the house. There's a lot of airflow, but still, when you're in there working like that, it gets pretty hot. But the last load of chickens is headed to the plant. They'll all be weighed. I should find out those weights tomorrow, hopefully. But we're hoping for some strong weights. So after the chickens are caught, there's always a few that are left behind, and I say a few, there's a handful. Some of them died from the last time I went through and picked up the dead, and then some of them may be just smaller birds that the catchers didn't feel like would be the quality of birds that would need to be processed, so they leave those behind. So we go through and clean up all those, and then I'm gonna be rolling my litter this go around. So I've actually started on that in one of my houses. But little spoiler alert, if everything works out, when we roll a couple of Eric's houses in a couple days, got a little surprise coming. Something we're trying out. So give you a little hint, I won't be driving anything green. So in the meantime, I'm gonna go get some lunch. I've already gotten feed lines up in my first house is catching tonight, and then my second house, I've got to get those feed lines up in about an hour. I'm not filming all this stuff because it's pretty redundant. If you saw it in the first part, same thing over and over. So anyway, we'll get the next part of my catch out really kicked off in about 3.5 hours. And hopefully I'm about 8 hours away from freedom, 8.5, maybe a little bit more, but freedom is close. There's nothing like that feeling when you're in your last house and you raise your last water line, because at that point, your work's mostly done other than just making sure everything goes smoothly with the catchers and they get all those birds out of here. We're getting ready for another farm sunset with minimal sleep in between. But they are catching the last house, and I'm coming to see what load they're on. So throughout the day, I've been working on just getting everything ready for the next house, and the other two houses I actually went ahead and windrowed them. I'll show y'all in the morning what one of the houses looks like before windrowing, because this is our first flock on fresh sawdust. So I'll go through and show you what the floors look like when you're done with one flock, and then I'll show you one of the houses I rolled. Looks to me like we're struggling to have trucks. We've got a loaded trailer and almost another loaded trailer. That trailer on the left is loaded. There's a truck that's probably about to hook to it. And then this one here on the right is about 4 cages shy of being loaded. So I feel like they're probably close to halfway done with my last house. But I'm practically in vacation mode, y'all. Except I'll be working tomorrow, but work life when you have chickens versus work life when you don't have chickens, it's just like 2 different worlds. Because a lot of times, especially this time of year, it's hot. My last time that I checked chickens may be around like 9:30 or 10 at night. So there's always that, gotta go down to the chicken houses, check everything, probably have to shower afterwards. And so tomorrow night after supper, I'll just kind of be sitting there like, I don't have to go down there. So anyway, we're pecking along. This crew, like I said earlier, they're gonna finish catching this house and then they'll go catch one of Eric's. We'll have a weekend, and then on Sunday evening, this same exact crew, they're coming back in and they're gonna catch the other 3 of Eric's. So as of Monday morning, we'll be chicken free. They're all gone. So they finished selling last night. I think they finished up Eric's house around 1:30 a.m. So the crew that caught my last 2 houses came up and caught one of his houses, and then Eric will be holding 3 houses over the weekend. But it's nice to have them gone. I've actually started rolling my litter already. Like I said earlier, next week going to be trying something different. We're not trying something different, trying something out when we roll litter at Eric's houses. So that video will be coming out later. If y'all are interested in that, be sure and check it out. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. We always enjoy hearing from you, and helps us out. And if y'all saw our video where we cleaned out after our last flock, so this is what it looks like basically after one flock. You can still see the sawdust pretty good, but you got to start kicking it around. There's still a decent amount of sawdust under there. That's part of the reason why we're going to just start out windrowing our litter. Going to put it all in windrows, let it heat up, then we'll spread it back out, and it'll still have a decent amount of fresh sawdust in it. If we came through here with the cruster right now and started crusting out some of this cake, it would really, it would probably take too much of this sawdust out and leave our litter too thin. So I don't think we're going to be running the cruster through here any. If anything, after we spread it back out from windrowing, we will hook up our Lewis Brothers crust buster, go in there and grind that litter up some more, and get it ready for the next flock. Our next flock's supposed to be coming back in July. But thank y'all for watching our video. Hope y'all enjoyed the catch out process, and y'all come back for the next video.